and tourism visits. We've worked with area municipal staff, including townships and cities, to ensure that this is as broadly open as it can be at a reasonable level to organizations that are smaller and younger, as well as those that are larger and more established, to ensure that this funding can be distributed out into the community. The idea is that it's going to be an annual program, this first year being a pilot. We'll evaluate after the first year to see how it went, understanding that a lot has changed in the tourism sector and the cultural sector since the pandemic. So again, it's a broad formula-funded program, get lots of applications in, everybody gets a piece of the pie depending on the number of tourism visits that they've received. After the first year, we'll have a little evaluation and see how it went.
Thanks. Are there any questions from committee members of Councillor Foxton?
But what
well, we are trying to save time.
Thank you. What's that? What did he say? Oh, behave yourself, Jim. Anyways, AIR is having its 200th anniversary, and there'll be a bunch of festivals in 2024. Would they be eligible for a grant like this?
Yes, but this is, so through the chair, this is going to be sort of retroactive funding. So this looks back on when something's happened, then the funding is provided in recognition of the festivals and events that have occurred, in recognition of the number of tourists that they attracted in. There are other funding streams that are available to be able to support that kind of activity, particularly looking to things like the Arts Fund or maybe even the Heritage Foundation in the advance, but this one would then be once those things have occurred and those organizations have undertaken that activity, they would be able to apply to this program and receive funding through it in that way.
Could you send me the information on which funds they can apply to?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Okay. I'm looking for a mover and a seconder for this. Moved by Councillor James, seconded by Councillor Wolf. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Or, I'm sorry, use your e-scribe. And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thanks, Rod. We'll do a bit of a switch here. So, what are we going to do after this one? So we will now, we're at 8.1.2. I know this is throwing everybody off. We're about 45 minutes ahead, which is probably the first time of this council, but bear with us for this good move. Mr. Sweeney is going to introduce this report.
Thank you, Chair Erb. I just want to provide a little bit of context for the report that you have before you, where there is a recommendation for your consideration as council. There is a transformation underway across the province of Ontario as it relates to Employment Ontario, both the delivery model and the funding. This transformation has been underway since about 2018, and there are unique circumstances that impact municipalities like the region of Waterloo, who are both a Ontario Works provider and an Employment Ontario provider. We are one of only 5 municipalities in Ontario who have such a distinction, and only one of those 5 have gone before us, and only slightly so. So what we are attempting to achieve here today with our recommendation to council is an acknowledgement that providing employment services to the most vulnerable in this community remains a very important and impactful piece of work that we do here at the region of Waterloo. There is a level of uncertainty in terms of what the operating model, the funding level, the targets, incentives and potential penalties. We just don't have clarity on that right now. So essentially what we're asking is for a commitment to remain an employment provider through the next fiscal year to give us an opportunity to both build the operating model with a new service system manager and then to also evaluate it after 1 year. Our staff who currently work in employment have been living through a level of uncertainty for a significant amount of time now, and I want to acknowledge their incredible hard work and effort, particularly through the pandemic, where we were the only Employment Ontario provider in our community that not only hit but exceeded our targets throughout the pandemic. An exceptionally talented and dedicated group of people, and as an organization, we feel that the unique opportunity we have to continue to support people on a path to employment is very, very important. So with that, Mr. Chair, I will happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Are there any questions? Councillor Wolf.
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you for your report. Could you explain to the public the advantages of our program for our clients?
Certainly. Thank you, Councillor Wolf. So as a provider of both Ontario Works support for individuals in our community who require income support, and also as a provider of employment services, in addition to everything else that we either operate or have a role in as service system manager and community services, in particular housing, childcare are two good examples. We really do try from a policy and a program perspective to take an all of person approach, a human-centered approach, and a social determinants of health approach. And so we know that both income and employment security are determinants of health, social determinants of health, and continuing to operate in a space where we have the opportunity to provide that holistic approach and support for people who are, who come to us at a moment of need and need of support in their life. We do believe that that is a unique perspective that we have in supporting those in this community who need it, and therefore we believe going forward, developing both a financially viable, but also an impactful programs model is something that we should continue to explore. Thank you.
Councillor Hunick.
Through you, Chair, I just have a comment to say thank you for doing everything that you can to maintain the holistic nature of services in this region.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? So I'd like to, do we have a mover and a seconder for this? Moved by Councillor Harris, seconded by Councillor Hunick. If you use your e-scribe buttons to vote. That's carried unanimously. Sorry, the next item, 8.2, there was some staff that were going to be here for that who aren't, and so we'll deal with that this afternoon. We'll go over to 8.2.3, the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, and call on Ms. McDonald to present, and Ms. Ogg to present.
Hello, members of Regional Council. My name is Fawzia Beg, and I'm the Director of Equity, Diversity and Inclusion. I'm joined today by Connie McDonald, Chief Strategy and Communication Officer. Today, we're here to provide you with an update on the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan Year 1 priorities and the plan for Year 2. I'm just waiting for, the presentation is just coming up there. Some of you may recall that the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan is provincially legislated under the Ministry of Community Safety and Correctional Services. All municipalities were asked to create a plan with specific requirements to address and improve the safety and well-being of their communities. In Waterloo Region, the community showed us a new way of working, and that guidance brought honesty, hope, and a focus on change. This was not a process to reinvent the wheel or to have the same conversations we had in the past. This was about a call to action to start the process of rebuilding and building new relationships and shifting, restoring power to community. In January of last year, the plan was brought to Council and unanimously approved, bringing us to where we are today as we focus on implementation. Next slide. So this is both a picture and the heart of the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan. This is what matters most to community when they envision safety and well-being. What makes this different is that rather than being focused on the systems that need to be changed, it focuses on common parts of all systems that need change. Change will be driven by what we know, and there are 11 conditions for safety and well-being, including honoring identities, understanding intersectionalities, and strengthening communities, making representation meaningful and powerful, and more. There are barriers to change that need to be addressed, like unresponsive systems, inequitable power distribution, and systemic oppression. And there's a lot already happening in our community that we need to grow, create, and explore upon. As you see, truth and reconciliation, anti-hate, anti-racism, and anti-oppression are not only pillars or lenses for this vision, they're at the very heart of what we need to do together to achieve safety and well-being for all. The social determinants of health help to show how the things like our natural and built environments, our income and food that we have access to, and so much more impact community well-being and safety. Then there are 3 bubbles. These signify the components of a transformed system. A safe and well community that's rooted in circles of support, self-determined communities, and accountability in action. Circle of support focuses on the importance of families. And families means a lot of different things. It can be chosen families, friends, neighbors, community organizations, or whoever makes up that core circle of support. When families can support themselves, there are far less need for system support. Self-determined communities. Communities know their needs best. And when power is shifted to communities and they're a resource to self-determine their needs and supports, safety and well-being are possible. Finally, there's system accountability in action, and this is about rebuilding institutional supports, working with communities to determine outcomes, and being held accountable. Next slide. So the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan was approved last year, and in its first year of implementation really focused on immediate action and supporting community-led initiatives by aligning existing work and new opportunities around priorities within the framework. This reflects the efforts of many partners, such as the region, area municipalities, sectors, community groups, and organizations who continue to work together and collaborate. Some examples on this slide include expanding community-led funding opportunities, expanding to culturally safe spaces and neighborhood initiatives and programs, staff training and education, celebrating days of significance, supporting anti-hate reporting, exploring alternative crisis response models, and advancing truth and reconciliation, the Reconciliation Action Partnership. And then, of course, focusing on community engagement opportunities to inform service and planning. Next slide. This slide builds on the previous one and showcases examples of the initiatives and projects and work that we are doing across departments at the region of Waterloo. This is not an exhaustive list, but rather meant to demonstrate that there are lots already going on and that there are multiple connections and impact these efforts are having towards Community Safety Wellbeing Plan priorities, which we hope to continue to grow. Some examples include the upstream community funding model, which is a great example of a collaborative project across departments. In planning, development, and legislative services, some examples include diverse library programs, diverse exhibits at the museum, the regional official plan engagement, and many more. In public health and emergency services, some examples include the Indigenous HPHC partnership, the expansion of the peer program, and the neighborhood bus. And in community services, some examples include portable rent assistance program, home childcare, and language mentorship. In transportation services, we have the Affordable Transit Pass. So again, this is just meant to give you an example of some of the initiatives that are already happening at the region of Waterloo. Next slide. Now I'd like to focus a little bit more on community impact. The Upstream Fund reflects the impact of self-determined communities. Council approved $2.1 million for community organizations working on upstream impact in the Waterloo region. The Upstream Fund is an example of how the CSWP framework can come to life. This is a community-led, system-supported process for shared governance, decision-making, and measurement of impact, all of which support self-determined communities, as this is about transformational change in the way we work with and support community and community's capacity to support itself. This slide is meant to showcase some of the impact of self-determined communities, 41 organizations working towards priorities within the framework. This is only the first year, and yesterday we wrapped up a series of community launch events that shared the 41 stories of community organizations leading change for community. We hope to continue to share the impact of those organizations are having as we continue to learn together. Next slide, and I'll turn it over to Connie.
Thanks, Fazia. The next couple slides, I'm filling in for Paula Whitlow, our Director of Truth and Reconciliation, who is also very involved in the framework and this work. As Fazia talked about, the work is intended to be community-driven. And although various programs and policy changes are being achieved through community-led approaches, this is on a project-to-project basis. We know that we need to continue ensuring that community has a meaningful role in overseeing the community safety and well-being plan. When the plan was being approved, I often talked about how the thing I was most proud about in this was that what I thought it was going to look like was absolutely not at all what it looked like. And that's because of the community-led, community-driven approach that was taken to developing the framework. I think many of us thought we would have a framework that was focused on systems and listing of systems and different activities within systems that we needed to do. And it was really the steering committee and the community engagement that helped us to build something that it could apply to all systems rather than having to choose only a few that we needed to work on. Since the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan was developed alongside and in the community, the action plan includes a focus on continuing to build that momentum. This is how we continue to grow our seeds into a garden as diverse as our community. Next slide. One of the challenges in doing something completely different is that you're doing something completely different. And so taking a different approach than many other communities did to their community safety well-being plans has been a learning journey for us and continues to be one that evolves as we learn and grow. We know that transformational change on a community and system level takes time, and it's going to take a lot of years to realize the benefits of the upstream different approach of the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan. There is lots of movement across the region, as Fazia spoke about, with area municipalities and our partners and volunteer-led organizations. And bringing this collective experience together will help us find more opportunities to work together for greater impact. Again, I want to acknowledge that as we continue to learn and grow on this journey, this plan is really a made in Waterloo region approach. And so as many communities are implementing their community safety and well-being plans, because ours is a bit different, we're actually able to share the differences in our plan with others in other communities and learn from them as well. And as the first year has focused mostly on grassroots-led action, we have a lot of work to do with our system partners and others around bringing everyone along on the framework from an implementation lens. Next slide. So as we engaged with community to build the community safety and well-being plan, we heard loud and clear a desire for action. And I think that's why the first year was so focused on actually taking tangible action in community. We heard a healthy dose of skepticism from community members as we were out engaging to say, we've had this conversation before, we've told you before what we need, and we haven't necessarily seen things change. And I'm really pleased with the work that's happened in year one with the Upstream Fund, with the Reconciliation Action Partnership with area municipalities, with work that's happening in OHTs and in the health system and others, that we have tangible actions we can point to that are bringing the framework to life. In year two, this work will continue, as well as a specific focus on the bubble in the framework on system change and accountability, in how we can further bring the framework to life across all systems. There's been a lot of good that's been happening, and a few people have said to me, this work is kind of like a really best kept secret, and we don't want it to be a secret anymore. So we are focusing on how we can communicate that change. One of the partnerships we had the chance to do just over the last few months was with Conestoga College, where we were able to be one of their capstone clients and work with 7 communications students who just graduated on how we can share the work of the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, the Upstream Fund, and other equity and reconciliation initiatives that the region and partners are doing together. One of the great things about this work has also been the number of community organizations and agencies that have reached out asking to be a part of it. And so this is great momentum that will serve us well as we head into our Year 2 goals. Next slide. So what will Year 2 look like? Lots more outreach and engagement, sharing the Year 1 successes, building on those, and continuing to bring the framework to life. Co-designing accountability and outcomes. So we are planning a symposium in the coming months this year where we'll come together with different partners, community and system partners and community members to really talk about the work that's been happening, the vision that community has set, and what some of the expected outcomes are that we can start to report back on from a community accountability lens. We heard loud and clear from community how important that accountability part is. And so that's a very important part of Year 2. Also looking at our governance. And so we had a very specific community-led governance structure that helped us develop the plan. We want to continue that, including representation from all of our community partners, and are exploring some different governance models that would be more flexible and nimble and supportive. We've heard from a lot of people that sitting around tables is not always the best use of their time, and so how do we use time wisely to continue to focus on action and outcomes? And then also improving more equitable evaluation and tracking models. One of the things we've heard from community is that numbers and data don't always tell the whole story. So how do we talk about impact from a more equity-driven lens? And how do we then report that back to the community so that they're seeing the work that's happening? Next slide. So that was a very brief, very quick overview of the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan framework, some of what the team has been up to in Year 1, some of the things that we're focusing on in Year 2, and a bit of humbleness from us as we continue on this learning journey of doing this completely different with community and recognizing that it's not perfect. It will continue to not be perfect, but we are seeing some really great results, and I think that the community momentum and energy has demonstrated that. We're happy to take questions.
Thank you. Are there questions? Councillor Wolf.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much, both of you, for your presentation. First of all, a comment, and that was how much I enjoyed the meeting yesterday and meeting some of the recipients of the upstream funding. The diversity from breastfeeding buddies in Arabic to Indigenous poetry to the number of groups in that room. And I was so glad to hear that the application for funding, that you help with that, and that you've reduced so many of the barriers was so good to see. And I love the fact that you're action focused, because I think the community is right. Too often we do just sit around tables and talk. But so my one question is, approximately how many organizations have you funded through the upstream funding?
42.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear.
41 organizations have received funding as part of the 2022 cohort, and our 2023 launch is just in its way right now, and applications will wrap up next week.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor James.
Yeah. Thank you both for the presentation and for doing this work. It is not easy work. I also just want to say it's more of a comment, that is, you have all of the frameworks and all of that. The reminder that it's about the process, not just the outcome. So that makes it meaningful. So be patient with yourselves and as you do this work. And I am glad to see it. I think sometimes we get stuck on how much we need to do without taking a break and a pause to say we aren't where we were. So thank you.
Councillor Foxton.
Thank you. Looks like we're monopolizing this side. I am so sorry I missed yesterday. I was at the other ones, and councillors, if you'd had a chance to go, what amazing work is being done. You've opened the door to so many groups and agencies, and it's only going to make all of us better. So thank you very much. And again, my apologies, I couldn't be in two places at once. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you for the presentation, but thank you for the work that you're doing. I too was at one of the presentations, and just the sense of good relationships that have been developed with these organizations in the region was quite good to see, and the work and the money or the difference that this funding is making for these organizations was truly remarkable. I know there's been many conversations throughout the community. Some of them have been difficult, and they will continue to be that way, but that's the only way we're going to move this forward. So thanks so much for what you're doing, and also extend our thanks to Paula, who's not part of the debate, the conversation today. Thank you.
And in the spirit of gratitude, I too would like to thank Regional Council, leadership at the region, and staff for bringing this to life. I hear all the time, I'm fortunate from community organizations that are really feeling included and hopeful that change is on its way and that impact is happening. So I want to thank you again for that too.
Thank you. Thank you. So what we're going to do is simply take a recess for lunch, or Councillor Deutschmann.
Yeah, thank you. I assume I had something for new business I just wanted to mention. Is that now or?
Well, we're going to do that later on.
We're coming
we'll
back.
go back to the consent
Okay,
agenda
sorry.
when we
Thanks.
reconvene at 12:30. That's okay? Okay, so a recess until 12:30 for lunch and reconvene back here then. Thank you. I'd like to reconvene the meeting of Community and Health Services. A few of our colleagues have joined us and are on their way and will be here in a few minutes. When we recessed, we ended at number 4, and so number 5 were presentations, which we have none, which I am aware of. We'll proceed into delegations, and as just a reminder, we do have a couple of delegations, and as a reminder to those of you who are here as delegations, if you conduct yourself in any of the following manners, it will result in an immediate removal from the meeting, interrupting councilors, staff, or other delegations, derogatory statements about councilors, staff, or others, turning your camera on at inappropriate times if you're online. I think everybody is with us today is in person. Hate speech or any defamatory comments. And a final reminder, please don't take any offense if following your presentation there are no questions from council. This is council's time to listen and reflect upon the opinions and ideas shared with us from community members. So I'd like to call or turn our attention to item number 6.1. Amy Slack and Deborah Spurl are here from the Cambridge Food Bank and invite you to the podium, and you have 5 minutes for the presentation. Thanks for joining us.
I have a pretty loud voice, so I'm pretty sure you could all hear me. I want to thank you for inviting us here. I want to be really clear that today I come to speak to you from the perspective of the Cambridge Food Bank, but I have had the opportunity to work alongside and with peers in the Peer Health Program in the region of Waterloo for a number of years. I would say about 23, but then you're going to try to age just how old I am in your seats. 24, you got it. Interestingly enough, last night my director, Diane, and I were chatting on the phone, and I was trying to think of some hard stats I could come up here and wow you guys with of just how impactful and influential the Peer Health Program has had in the Cambridge Food Bank alone. And I'm really sorry, but I couldn't. We have been a recipient of this funding for so long, that number would be in the tens of thousands, and then you would never believe me. And I don't want to come off as being fraudulent in the very opening of my speech, so I'm going to leave that one behind me. I think we can change the slides. One thing that you'll notice is I don't match the person on my slide deck. This is Chaitali, and she is our peer health mentor. She, of course, is in program facilitating this afternoon and couldn't join us, so I'm going to be speaking on her behalf. Peer Health with the Cambridge Food Bank is an investment in the betterment and wellness of all of those who walk through our doors. We take full advantage of our peer health workers and the vast experience and knowledge they bring with themselves to the table. You can go to the next slide. One thing that you can't see and you won't see in this slide deck is the impact not only that the peer health workers have on our community, but that this peer health program has on the peer health workers themselves. In my career in the region, many peer health workers I worked with are new Canadians or new working people, and this is their first time employment into the workforce with a real job. They bring with themselves an array of experience and history and knowledge that we don't have, and that value that it brings to an organization and their network that they bring with them is insurmountable. Currently, Chaitali, our peer health mentor, could not join us this afternoon as she is in program. She's been with the Cambridge Food Bank a number of years, and now she is employed full-time as a nutrition coordinator. So she has moved beyond peer health, and she is full-time enrolled with us in nutrition. I think I speak beyond our own organization in stating that we invest in further training and development for our peer health workers as they are worth their weight in gold. On any given day, you can find Chai facilitating online health and wellness programs, perhaps in our emergency room teaching a young mom about alternative food options for her young family, or maybe even yet facilitating a free cooking or nutrition program at another partner agency for their immediate community who's coming in to access services. Within this slide deck, you can move forward one more. You're going to see that there's stats that represent registered programs. And so these are really important stats to us, but it doesn't showcase the impact that one knowledgeable and accessible peer health person can have in our space. For instance, this is Carla. That's too far away for me to read. Don't tell my optometrist. I know Carla. She comes into a number of our peer health programs. She has been really struggling to keep up with her employment. She is currently on ODSP. She really enjoys coming to our nutrition programs online because she can do that from the comfort of her own home. She has gained more mobility. She's learning about more nutritious foods, and she gets very personal in her story, so you can read that on your own slide deck. If we could go to the next slide, please. This is also another person that's coming to CHI's programs. This is one of our oldest registrants that are attending. She has gotten her daughter and now her grandson to attend our family programs. And so you can see the ripple effect that one person has on their entire family when we really start to improve the health and wellness in the family unit. The next slide, please. In our direct registered programs in 2022, we had 295 adults report improved health after attending just one of our wellness programs. As I just said, not all stats are as weighted, as important as others. And what I really want to convey before I hand the mic over to Debbie is it's those stats that we really can't report on that have the most weight in our agency. You're going to see on the last slide the incredible increase in need of emergency food in our food bank. Many households come into our food bank as new Canadians, refugees, foreign students, and younger families, who often turn away food to lack of knowledge, unknown food prep skills, or an inability to identify just how to cook them. If you are in a food bank, we do not want anyone leaving without any of the food resources that we're offering them. It is in these daily, small, teachable moments that Pure Health has the greatest impact. Filling bellies with nutritious, nutrient-dense foods and proteins supports food security in a time where unprecedented households are food insecure. Thank you.
Thank you. So are there, your time is up. So you're only making the one presentation, or was there two, both of you speaking?
There was a second part. Did I speak? I'm sorry.
Do you, any idea the length of it?
It's 1 minute and 46 seconds.
Okay. We'll hear. Let's hear that.
Good afternoon. My name is Debbie, and through the Cambridge Food Bank, I work as a trained peer health worker. I started as a volunteer 13 years ago, and through the food bank, I became trained. Since then, I have worked in many types of peer capacities at the food bank, each one working alongside program participants. So I work beside Chantilly. Some examples of these programs include cooking programs with adults, seniors, and young families. Also, I was important in food recovery, where we clean fresh produce and teach people how to freeze it, bottle it, however they need to do to save money and have food. Creating taste tests, displaying, showcasing easy, delicious recipes. I bring a knowledge of healthier way of life, giving folks the recipes options into a slightly different way of cooking, introducing the different foods, how to prepare them. Kale by massaging, therefore making it friendlier to eat. Kale chips, kale pesto, how to clean, how to prep, freeze, and preserve these foods. Most recently, I've been touring with the most important aspect of the mobile food market. It's a farmer's market on wheels. We sell low-cost produce baskets in neighborhoods around the Cambridge and North Dumfries areas, 11 different locations. On a weekly basis, the basket consists of at least 6 vegetables, fruits, and all summer long, we support local farms as much as we can. It is here that I can tour around Cambridge each week and encourage folks to try new foods, different ways of cooking, more healthier. I feel that the peer health role in the MFM and the Cambridge Food Bank is an integral part of introducing affordable, nutrient-dense foods into the lives of all community members. We benefit from the peer health program's ongoing impacts. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much for your presentation. And it's more of a comment. I just love the Cambridge Self-Help Food Bank. And as you've presented today, it is so much more than a food bank. And you treat the whole person, not just the nutrition part. And so many of your programs and so many of the people who have gone through your programs, the success, like the Small Steps to Success program for women, the graduates from that program are amazing. I love your mobile markets because I've gone to the ones at the church on Myers, there's so, and in Preston, you find the places where fresh fruits aren't available. And anyway, I can't say enough about your organization. And anyone here that's not familiar with it, you should go there sometime and take a tour and meet the great people that run that organization. Thanks.
Thank you. I just drew an inch.
Councillor Craig?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And again, I'm going to couple on to Councillor Wolf's comments about the food bank and the great impact it has within the Cambridge community. And if I may, Mr. Chair, I have a question of staff after the delegation sits down regarding food banks.
Councillor Foxton.
Thank you, and through the chair, I think you guys are amazing. You can grow another inch. I'm the mayor of North Dumfries, and you come into my community, and a lot of times the struggling poor sit within communities and we're unaware of it. But this is such they come into the church with these baskets and they sell them for $5 a piece. Or I can buy a basket and donate $10, which will offset the cost of another basket for some other people. And it means so much to the community. Everybody talks about you, everybody loves you, and they really appreciate you coming, and thank you so much.
Councillor Deutschmann.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to commend you for the programs with CHI. In what I do as a personal injury lawyer dealing with people that are hurt in accidents or suffering from disability, there's such a lack of available everything's paid for, like mental health services, right, in the community. You need a psychologist or what have you. We're fortunate to have Horizon, but I know they've just recently changed their name that will provide assistance based on OHIP fees or rates. But anything you can do to expand in that area, I think it's excellent because there is no access to that, and there's so many people that need this sort of help. And just reading this story about Carla, I can see when my clients are able to get access to services like this and to be able to do that at home on their own in the comfort of their home via Zoom, but have access to the sort of feedback that helps them try to navigate through what they're experiencing, especially from a mental health perspective, is so valuable. So I really commend you for that. And I hope you will work to expand that part of your offerings if you can. I appreciate there's a lot of demands all over, but thanks for sharing that. Really appreciate it.
Chair Redmond.
Thank you, Chair Erb. I really, too, want to add to my voice of commendation. I sort of have two quick questions. I'll ask them both at once. One is so many services we see time and time again, and it can be food banks, it can be social services. If you go to where people are, it's much more accessible. So I'm wondering how many neighborhoods you take the mobile market to and how you decide where they are. I think it's a wonderful concept. And my second question, and I might have missed an intervention earlier on community safety and well-being and where that's going. And I know that there was a partner that we partnered with, the Nigerian Food Bank, and they were talking about culturally diverse and appropriate foodstuffs, especially fresh food. And I'm wondering if that's part of your program.
There we go. Currently, we're at 11 different locations with our mobile food market. No? Yeah, it's green. Yeah. And so when we rolled out those locations, we did a lot of work on kind of the food desert aspect of where is the fresh produce. And we strategically didn't pick where people would assume low-income neighborhoods, because it's really important to recognize that food security, especially when it comes to fresh produce, we can't determine food insecure households anymore because food insecurity is so vast. We have been oversubscribed to from neighborhoods to try to get the mobile food market in, and so we strategically wanted to be in almost every neighborhood when we first rolled out, and now we're looking at, we're almost in two locations in every part of town. We are just about ramping up to hire a part-time person to help support that position, because we can't be any more than what we are with one full-time person in one vehicle. So we have recognized the need for that program, and keep on the lookout. We will definitely be in more neighborhoods very soon. And that is really determined. We have a heat map also in the food bank that we use, so we can look at to see where folks who are using our food bank live. It's really important to recognize with the mobile food market especially, and the peer health worker tagging along to help encourage folks to eat the beets and take the eggplant and do the things. A lot of the stories we've heard from folks, specifically seniors who are accessing the mobile food market, is that accessing that food resource has kept them from having to cross the threshold and become a food bank family, because it alleviates that pressure on their food budget. So not only do we use our heat maps, but we also just want to be in every neighborhood. We are really actively working on being that. And what was the second part to you? The culturally relevant foods, sorry. Yes, and so a big part of that, yes, 100%, is we in the winter months, we have to order the food in from food suppliers, and we go to the Toronto Food Terminal, and so we're purchasing the food. But in the summer months, it is within our mission that we have partnerships with local agricultural farms, and so the money purchased in the mobile food market goes right back into local agriculture. And so as long as we can get the variety and the diversity in foods grown here, in the summer months, we really tried to stick true to that. In the winter months, we are much more creative, because we're ordering that food in, and it gives us the opportunity to have those culturally relevant foods. There's also a really nice teachable moment for folks, as much as we want to be able to provide culturally relevant foods, to have those moments of, this is what you can grow in your own backyard. This grew in Southern Ontario, and this is how you can potentially eat it. So it's a unique balancing act that we try to have our feet on both sides of that fence.
I have Councillor Craig for his second question, wondering, are there any other firsts? Councillor Hunick?
Thank you, Chair. Can you speak to what you're doing, if anything, for folks with food sensitivities, such as gluten-free diets, etc.?
100%. In all of our food bank programs, we recognize the need for dietary restrictions and sensitivities, especially in 2023. We do our very best. We rely heavily on the donations that come in every day, and we're very thankful for our grocer partners. So when we are taking those food purchases that we're using, we are allocating specific funds and now only applying, sometimes we apply for a grant to purchase just gluten-free or just halal foods. We have a lot of dairy sensitivities when they're coming in, so we have vegan options. We really try to have vegetarian options in our freezers instead of a meat protein. We have almond milk and coconut milk on hand as best we can, and then when we hit the threshold, then we use those funds to help purchase those foods to keep those bellies full as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Councillor James.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Chair Erb, thank you for the presentation. Just have a question in terms of how much food do you currently have? What is the capacity for the length of time?
So we have a 6-month contingency in place right now. And so if catastrophe should strike, we have a contingency that we believe would last us longer than 6 months. But we are dead hard set that for 6 months for sure. If we had to maintain all the staff, all the programs, all the things we have right now, with the increase of food, because more people would be coming if catastrophe hit, we have a 6-month solid plan.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're on to round two. Councillor Craig.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and this is a question to staff. And it relates to the fact that the food bank, much like other facilities that throughout the region, it punches much above its weight in terms of how it impacts the community. They're in the midst right now of trying to raise funds for a new building, new facility. And I'm just wondering if, in fact, the region in any way does support, either directly or indirectly, financially, health organizations, of which I would suggest this would possibly fit under, in terms of capital funding or perhaps a property that the region owns in the city of Cambridge that could be part of their future plans. They're trying to raise $10 million. That's not going to happen. And it's very, very difficult. I shouldn't say it's not going to happen. I'm going to say it's very, very difficult. And I'm just wondering if staff at some point could get back in terms of direct or indirect help that can be possibly given to the food bank so they can continue with the program and to expand their program. Not here.
Okay, so Mr. Sweeney and then Mr. Lochner, you want to respond? Okay.
Do you want to go, Bruce?
So thanks for the question and really appreciate the work that you do. There are a number of organizations in Cambridge, like many of our municipalities, that are struggling with space, and as we grow, I would argue needing even more space. So we are in conversations with our area municipal partners. In fact, I just had a conversation with David Calder yesterday and the mayor. And again, we're going to be taking a look at this in cooperation with our city colleagues in terms of the broader need in Cambridge.
So we'll hear something back. All right, I'll be counting on it. Thank you.
Timely conversation to have, to respond. Thank you. Councillor Fox.
Actually, my questions was exactly the same as Doug, and I just want to say thank you. Let's make this happen. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you for the good work that you're doing and continued success.
Thanks,
Thank you.
guys.
The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Any council member want to move anything specifically off the consent agenda? And if not, do we have a mover and a seconder to approve the items under number 7? Moved by Councillor Foxton, seconded by Councillor Nowak. Use your e-scribe buttons to respond, please. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. So we were doing a bit of moving around on the agenda. We're now at 8.2, strategic focus, the health and safety and inclusive community. And I'm going to call on Julie Waller, Director of Senior Services at Sunnyside Home, and Dr. Fred Mather to make a presentation. Julie, do you want to start it off, please?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Chair Erb. It is my pleasure to be here today in what we hope will be one of many times that Senior Services comes to committee, particularly as we look forward to future planning for the Seniors Division. It's our hope that we'll be able to engage committee in these discussions. I'm also really happy to be here during an important week for some of the staff back at Sunnyside Home. This week we celebrate National Nurses Week, and shortly before that, on May 1st, we celebrated National Physicians Day.
Both of these recognition events celebrate the commitment, compassion, and importance of healthcare workers. But the purpose of my being here today is to have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Fred Mather, Medical Director for Sunnyside Home. Dr. Mather has been the medical director for over 25 years at Sunnyside Home and an attending physician for 33 years. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe this will be his 19th report in front of committee. During the time that Dr. Mather has supported the home, he has been instrumental in leading our medical services program to ensure that every resident receives the best possible care. In addition to that, Dr. Mather has served as president of the Ontario Long-Term Care Clinicians Association and is presently vice chair of the Ontario Association of Residents' Councils. I want to pay particular notice to Dr. Mather's steadfast and unwavering commitment during the global COVID-19 pandemic to Sunnyside Home and to long-term care homes across the province. Dr. Mather is a recognized and celebrated advocate for the sector and has been instrumental in protecting the rights of the residents at Sunnyside Home while always ensuring it's a safe place to live. Over to you.
Thank you, Julie, and thank you, Chair Erb, for having me give this report. I return after a hiatus of a couple of years because of the pandemic, and it's good to see some familiar faces and several new faces as well at this body. Next slide, please. So I'll just give a brief report to highlight things that are in your report that was submitted. I'll review the COVID-19 experience and lessons learned, mention the Fixing Long-Term Care Act, and highlight the Butterfly Project, which is a very interesting accomplishment we've had at Sunnyside over the last couple of years. Next slide, please. So the graph on this slide shows, it's from the Canadian Institute of Health Information, and the purple bars represent the long-term care deaths, and you can see that there was a significant incidence of deaths in the first wave, which peaked in about March and April 2021, 3 years ago now, and then the second wave in the early part of 2022. And I think this is of interest because it does show, and other data shows, that there was an excess deaths in long-term care, and you're familiar with the horrendous outbreaks that we experienced at that time. At Christmas time in 2021, the first vaccine became available, the Pfizer vaccine, which had to be kept in very cold sub-zero temperatures. And over the Christmas vacation, Sunnyside and other facilities were busing people to Grand River Hospital in order to get their first shots, and then their second shots about a month later. And you can see the dramatic reduction in long-term care versus community deaths in this case that occurred after the vaccination. Last Friday, the World Health Organization declared that COVID was no longer a global emergency, but it is still with us. And I was at another facility this morning where 2 units are in outbreak, but it's a very different time that we're dealing with, and certainly with the vulnerable population that we serve. It has, the vaccinations have made a significant difference in protecting them and controlling outbreaks. The one thing lesson that should not be forgotten going forward is the cost of infection prevention and control, the impact of isolation of residents, restriction of visitors, restriction of activities within the home. It's not as easy to measure as the number of cases and deaths, but as we prepare for any future crisis, we have to keep in mind the psychosocial impact of the pandemic we just had, and make sure that we can always assure the best quality of our residents as we take precautions. Next slide, please. So the Fixing Long-Term Care Home Act is the new long-term care legislation that replaces the previous Long-Term Care Home Act that was passed in 2010. and it is in part a response to the COVID pandemic. The Act itself actually does not differ a whole lot from the previous Act. There are, I think, some significant changes in language in the Act, and in particular, reference to the palliative approach to care. And it is important that people are aware that the definition of palliation just does not apply to end of life, but it's a philosophy of care that's defined by the World Health Organization as an approach that improves the quality of life of patients and their families through prevention and relief of suffering by early identification and impeccable assessment and treatment of pain and other problems, physical, psychosocial, and spiritual. And we see the reference to the palliative philosophy or the palliative approach to care throughout the Act. Now, the Act is what is in the legislation, and the regulations is how the homes carry out what's in the Act. Next slide, please. And the new regulations have put a real burden on the homes in some ways because the expectations of homes and the increase in items such as mandatory training and inspections are much greater with the new Act. Next slide, please. The regulations have an impact on the medical staff, including the medical director, attending physicians, and nurse practitioners who work in the home. One thing that we were pleased to see in the regulations is that the medical director of all homes in Ontario will complete the Ontario Long-Term Care Clinicians Medical Director course within 12 months after the medical director first begins to perform his or her duties in the home. I was especially pleased to see this because OLTCC had standing in the inquiry into the safety of long-term home, the Gillese inquiry, and I represented long-term care at the public hearings at the Elgin County Courthouse back in 2018. And when Justice Gillese released her report in July 2019, she did recommend, of the 91 recommendations, number 4 was that all medical directors should complete this course, which is one thing that's keeping me busy right now. We had a in-person course in January, a virtual one in March, and now we're in the middle of a virtual one in May as well. Next slide. And finally, I would just like to conclude by updating you on the butterfly approach to care. This is a best practice in person-centered and emotion-focused model of dementia care. Our 2 secure units, Laurel Creek and Button Works, have had very extensive and impressive makeover, making it more friendly, putting people in a more peaceful and restful place. The whole philosophy here is a meaningful engagement of the staff with the residents and the significant environmental transformation. One of the quality indicators that are reported in long-term care is the potentially inappropriate use of antipsychotics, which is always an issue when you're dealing with individuals with dementia and behavioral issues. And at Sunnyside Home, that is one quality indicator. We have shown a significant drop in its use because of the butterfly approach to care. So I will conclude my report and welcome any questions that people will have.
Thank you, Dr. Mather. Are there any questions? Councillor Foxton.
Thank you. I had the privilege, along with, I believe, yourself, Jim Erb, to attend the opening when you had the butterfly program up, and what an amazing program. Yeah. And to tell this council that those that are on the early stages of dementia and stuff, this is a real lifesaver for them. Mm-hmm. You know, it's an extension that their families are just overwhelmed by the good that it does. And I hope that they get a chance to maybe witness it again, your program.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it's a program that it changes the whole idea of what outsiders would think of institutional care, and it's a philosophy that we are going to carry on through the other areas of the home.
Councillor McCabe.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. It's very interesting to get this update. I'm curious about your relationship with the Research Institute for Aging in Waterloo and the think tank there and the work that they do. And do you work in partnership with them on research or some of the, I know they had a great role to play in identifying some of the, doing research during COVID they brought the third booster shot in and probably saved many, many people across Canada's lives. So, they're a fantastic resource locally. I'm just curious how, or if there's connections with you and them.
There's not a direct connection with me. I've met with Jamie Schlegel and Dr. Joe Lee, who's on the board there, but we're not directly connected. At least I'm not directly connected.
I'm wondering if, sorry to interrupt, I'm wondering if Julie would want to respond to that, if perhaps have had some contact.
Thank you, through you, the chair. Yes, we do have a relationship. The CLRI has supported us with a number of the initiatives that we're working on. We're currently and have been enrolled in their the Psychological Safety in the Workplace initiative, which was a long-term care focused initiative to support workplace well-being. We also work with them on other initiatives like their palliative approach to care focus or participate in many of their research initiatives.
Chair Redmond.
Thank you, Chair Erb. Dr. Mather, it's so nice to see you again. Councillor Shantz and I were trying to guess how many years you've been in your position. And can I just commend you for doing the upgrading and staying current with those courses. I'm sure you could teach them rather than take them. I think it's a real testament to the professionalism at Sunnyside Home. And I don't know if you want to respond to this or Julie, but I just wanted to say I think I feel a field trip coming on in that I've had the opportunity with CEO Lochner to visit the butterfly section of Sunnyside Home, but I think that we should all go and see it because it's very, very impressive.
Well, I think I can speak for Julie and say you're most welcome. Yeah. Okay.
Councillor Wolf.
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you for the presentation. And I wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you. My mother was a resident, I think about 6 years ago, and wonderful staff, so caring, so professional, and for myself going in, always welcome. And she had actually a wonderful last year of her life. She died at almost 99. Yeah. And, when we were going through that, the staff did everything they could for us and for her. And, it just warmed my heart to see how caring your staff were.
Yeah, well, that's great to hear about the staff. And I would reinforce the fact that the staff are wonderful, but they're very consistent too. And I have the advantage of working in a couple of other homes where you don't see the staff staying where they are as long as they are. And one issue that's out there, particularly in long-term care right now, is the dependency that a lot of the licensees have on agency staff. And we don't see that at Sunnyside Home, which means a lot.
Yes, thank you.
I'm wondering if you would, perhaps for the benefit of the new councillors, just speak briefly to the butterfly distinction that was given to Sunnyside, 3.5 years ago, 4 years ago, might be of some interest.
Maybe Julie, you're the better one to answer that because you're.
Which is a pretty significant award.
Yes, very much. Through you, the chair. So in January 2020, I know some of you were at Sunnyside Home when we launched our official campaign to be Waterloo Region's first butterfly home. A few months later, the pandemic started and our life took a swift turn to the left. In August 2022, we officially received our certification as Waterloo Region's first butterfly home. Something we're incredibly proud of. We received a level 1 outstanding recognition, which is the highest possible achievement in butterfly certification. It's remarking earlier on some of the tours, I do have to say that it's been incredible
seeing the number of people who want to come and see some of the amazing things that our staff are doing. We're hosting usually at least one tour a week from people across the province. So would love to have you come. The words that we say could never do justice for the feelings that you will see and experience when you walk in those doors. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Any other questions or comments? Thanks for the presentation.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you for the wonderful reputation that Sunnyside has in the region and for the work that you're doing caring for our elderly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next agenda item is 8.2.2, and I'm going to call on Mr. Regier to introduce the report along with Mr. Chandy on engaging the voices of young people in Waterloo Region.
Thank you very much, Chair Erb. Children and Youth Planning Table is a very important part of the economic development team in Planning, Development, and Legislative Services. And they've got a very exciting youth engagement program that has just been launched. I think it's actually on the street right now. Part of what they want to do now is tell council all about it and illustrate how we can support them further. Over to you.
Thank you very much. We're going to turn it over to one of our youth connectors who's here to talk about the Youth Impact Survey, which has been launched. That's a very important initiative for all of the Waterloo region. When we think about the type of questions and the information we're gathering from children and youth across Waterloo region, it really does affect and impact how we deliver our services at the region and at the area municipalities. And one of the things our Alison and A1 are going to talk, Abdullah is going to talk about is exactly that. It's just how important it is. And also just want to point out that this information is all broken down by area municipalities. So we're very much looking forward to putting together data briefs and sharing with you how youth view Waterloo region right now. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Alison and Abdullah.
Thank you, Matthew. Good afternoon, Chair Erb, members of committee. So nice to see you today. My name is Alison Pearson. I'm the manager with the Children and Youth Planning Table. If you're not familiar with the collaborative, it's an open membership community collaborative focused on child and youth well-being. It's pan-regional, and at this point we have over 1,000 members connected across our community and over 100 organizations involved. Many of those members connected are young people themselves. And recently, in the last 2 years, we've been able to take the step of introducing paid staff roles on the team that helps move this work forward in our community. And part of the funding, actually, that we received from the Council's Reconciliation and Equity Fund has gone towards funding our Youth Connector roles and our new Youth Ambassador roles. And I have Abdullah A1 here today, one of our Youth Connectors, who I'm going to prioritize you getting a chance to hear from as we are in the month of May and looking at hearing from as many young people as possible through the Youth Impact Survey. So I'll turn it over to Abdullah. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Abdullah Awan. I'm a grade 11 student at Southwood Secondary School. And I just wanted to explain to all of you what the Youth Impact Survey is and what it means to me and what I believe it means to a bunch of youth as well. The Youth Impact Survey is essentially a tool designed to gather feedback and opinion from young people on the various issues that affect them. The survey is conducted to better understand the needs, interests, and concerns of young people and how to improve services and policies that implement them. Well, in my opinion, as a young person, the Youth Impact Survey matters because it gives me and young people a voice in a way and an opportunity to share our thoughts and experiences. Often, young people, our perspectives and opinions are overlooked, dismissed, or ignored by adults who may think that they know what's best for them. However, as a young person and other young people, we have unique insights and experiences that can only be understood and addressed by hearing them and listening to them. As a young person myself, I believe it's essential to ensure that young people feel valued, heard, and included in decision-making processes that affect their lives. When young people feel that their voices are heard, they feel more included and know that these decisions better affect them. They're more likely to engage in activities that promote their well-being, contribute to their communities, and become more active citizens. Moreover, the Youth Impact Survey can provide valuable information to policymakers, such as yourselves, and service providers to design programs and services that meet the needs of these young people. By involving young people in the design and delivery of services, programs will be more effective and have a greater impact on these people's lives. In summary, the Youth Impact Survey matters because it gives young people a voice, ensures that their perspectives are heard and valued, provides very valuable information to policymakers and service providers to improve the programs and services that affect young people. I believe it's essential to involve these young people in decision-making processes to ensure that their needs are met and that they can reach their full potential. So we need your help to reach our goal of 3,000 youth filling out our survey so we have more perspectives on what issues are and how we can help to better understand them. We also have packages prepared for promotion materials which will be sent after the meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Abdullah. Thanks, Allison. Are there any questions from council? Councillor McCabe?
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you so much for your presentation. You did a really great job, and it's always really great to hear directly from youth. So I appreciate your participation in the program, and maybe you've gotten some of your friends or brothers and sisters or people at your school or things like that involved. So, yeah, thanks for getting involved. And when we have young people come into the chambers, I'm the mayor of the city of Waterloo, I always tell them they have to make a promise that they're going to vote. So since you've been involved in this program, I hope all the youth involved make a promise to vote in the next municipal, federal, and provincial elections. But be that aside, I'm just wondering if one of you can I was curious about how newcomer youth are involved in the program, or maybe youth at risk are included, and particularly youth with maybe some special needs, whether those are physical or developmental disabilities, and what kind of outreach is done with sometimes some more vulnerable youth to get them engaged. And then my other question is, or comment is, I hope that this group is really involved with the strategic planning process that the region's embarking on, because I think the voices of the youth are going to be, they're extremely important in everything we do, but particularly since we're a region that's really looking in the strategic plan, we're really looking towards the future. I think that'll be a really good information that we can gather from the youth involved with this project, or this collaborative. So thank you.
Wonderful. Through you, Chair. So diversity in responses and voices heard is a key priority when it comes to this project. We have, as I mentioned, youth connectors on our team that have helped push this out into corners of our community that we may not reach otherwise, and we now have an additional 12 youth ambassadors from a variety of diverse backgrounds that were brought on board for their ideas and inspiration of how they could connect to communities that they're involved with. Across the table, we have, as I mentioned, over 100 organizations, many of whom are serving more vulnerable families and children, diverse families and children, and they are thinking about ways within their organizations that they can help connect young people that they work with. For example, Kids Ability is thinking about how they can host a survey party with young people in program, and helping us think about our materials and how we can make the materials as accessible as possible. The survey itself right now is available in 2 languages, English and French, and we also have consent forms that are actually available in 7 different languages based on what we know from Immigration Partnership and partners working with newcomer Canadians about the most common languages in our community. And finally, this year, the tool is also going to be available in paper formats, and we have youth ambassadors who can help support the completion of the survey with young people if that's desired.
Thank you very much. That sounds really thorough, and glad to hear that, particularly that Kids Ability and groups like that are involved, because I think those are sometimes more vulnerable groups that are sometimes their voices aren't included as often as they should be. I just also remind you, and maybe this is on your list, that at various municipalities, certainly in our municipality, I know others have neighborhood associations and neighborhood strategies and things like that, and it's a good source to, you know, to go and look for youth, but also just to share the surveys and things like that as well. So thank you very much for the information. I appreciate it and the work you're doing.
Chair Redmond.
Thank you, Chair Erb. At the risk of sounding like a public service announcement, you want 3,000 responses to this survey from people between ages 9 and 18, and that's a pretty lofty target. I'm just wondering, can you comment on what we as councillor can do to help push that survey out?
Thank you, through you, Chair Erb. Last time when we ran the survey in 2021, we set a goal of 1,000, and that was tripling the responses we had heard in 2020. And actually, members around this table were very helpful and instrumental, those who were in your positions last term, helping to push it out on social media, for example, through emails, through newsletters that you might send out to your constituents, and being a voice that helps signal to young people that you're listening and you're interested and you're paying attention. We would hear a number of times from young people, what does it matter? Like, if I fill out the survey, so what? And we wanted to help relay the voices of decision makers back to them to say, people are interested, people are listening, people are valuing what you have to say and contribute. And so in your positions and in your neighborhoods and in your families and networks, if you can help be a champion for this survey as our best tool, I think, locally to hear from a diverse cross-section of young people and how valued it is, we'll make sure you have the tools that are ready to go to help push it out. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you for the presentation and for the inspiration. Good luck. Yep. We are now on to agenda item 9.1, the Council Committee Information Tracking. Council received that with their report or with their agendas. Other business. Councillor Deutschmann.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just sharing with everyone this morning. I heard this story on CBC KW about the collaboration between the Cambridge Shelter and the community company from Guelph, and I thought it was such a great story about the work that's being done to assist men through the shelter and the opportunity to find employment. And it was just such a positive story that I wanted to give a public shout out to the work that they're doing down there and just bring that to the attention of council. Again, it's like that concept of 1,000 points of light in the community. We do a lot as we can, but there's so many other organizations that are doing great work on their own and collaborations, and I think it's just great to share and good to see. So thank you for the opportunity to share the story.
Councillor Foxton.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Deutschmann, for distributing that. I read it, and what a wonderful story. And you're right, you know, it's all about collaboration, and together we are better. So what a great society that they would move forward with something like this. Thank you.
I wanted to take a minute on behalf of council to acknowledge the work of the many hands and hearts who worked so hard over the past couple of months to get our managed encampment site up and operational on Herb Street. And I use the words hands and hearts intentionally because this, I think, was a truly a labor of love by those involved to make it happen. And it was no small task. I think met with strong determination to get the job done in unprecedented times and not in sometimes the most ideal weather and working conditions. And I want to especially acknowledge the enthusiasm and the leadership of Ryan Petitpierre and Kellyanne Salerno and their co-workers who embodied that labor of love in getting the project coming together. I'm sure many days it felt like their office was at Herb Street. But all the time and commitment, I think, has paid off. And down to the toss cushions that were on the beds in the model units, and the constant reminder from Kellyanne that these units were 106.5 square feet, not 107 square feet, which I was telling people. And there's many elements of this project that I think we deserve to be proud of. But for me, what I take the most pride in is the finishings, the furnishings, and the amenities that have got into this. And it's something that many of us would have wanted, would want for ourselves if we were doing any work. And I think, as it should be, we included these kinds of same comforts for those who are going to be served at Herb Street, and I think we should take some satisfaction in that. This was a true product of cooperation between all the departments at the region, which of course included community services, finance, legal, planning, and especially facilities. And I want to give a special shout out to Dave Pollack for facilities, who literally moved mountains to keep this project on track and completed. So thanks to Dave and your team for all your hard work. The good folks at Now Housing from Cambridge provided us with a product that is sustainable and meets the needs of the community we want to serve. And I do hope this collaboration and relationship that we develop with Howe, which is not the last time we're going to be working with them. And of course, it wouldn't be happening if it wouldn't be for the work of our partner, the Community Working Center. Thank you for the Working Center who have worked so hard to make this project go and the success it is. To our friends from EMS, thank you for being good neighbors, for sharing part of your space with this group of the community. To the neighborhood, for asking some tough questions and continuing to ask some tough questions and wanting to be engaged, that we have this facility there. And I hope what we don't lose sight of is our long-term goal of providing permanent and supportive housing for those who are currently at Herb Street. And that we don't let the novelty and the uniqueness of this site distract us from the goal of eventually having enough spaces to provide long-term, affordable, and supportive housing for those who are temporarily housed at Herb Street. And to do that, we need the unprecedented help of upper levels of government, our community partners, and those who we've been working with in the past. And so to Now Housing, the Working Center, the staff in all departments of the region, EMS, to Peter, Kellyanne, Ryan, and Dave, thanks for making this initiative such a reality for us and something that we can all be proud of. Councillor Urbanovic.
Thanks, Councillor Erb, and I too would echo those comments, certainly of the work that staff has done on that, and certainly building on the lessons that were previously learned at the Working Center's other partnership with St. Mary's and other community partners with the Better Tent City initiative. I know that when we recently had the Ontario Big City Mayors here, I had the opportunity with one of my colleagues and some staff to go and tour the site, and certainly a lot of great work has been done by Peter and the team, something that's been acknowledged previously as well. I do want to ask one question, I guess, and it has to do with a follow-up from the recent budget meeting. At the time, there was discussion around what we call, there was a request from a Better Tent City, and we did consider a funding request at that time, and decided to not proceed with it. That was the will of this council at that time, so that staff could so that staff could go and do some additional work to bring forward a methodology under which funding will be made available. And so I'm just wondering if Mr. Sweeney can indicate where that's at, because I do think it's important that as we look at this, we recognize that this is the second of two sites, and that, you know, one is fully funded by the community and by ratepayers, and the other one is largely funded through donors. And so what we want to do, I think, still is have that, I mean, ultimately understand when that's coming back, because the sustainability of that other model is something that continues to be a concern.
Thank you, Councillor Rabanovich. So I do know staff have had conversations with the Better 10 City. Ryan and Kellyanne aren't here today, so I can't get into the specifics. But, you know, where we're at right now is having conversations about what might be possible. But the reality is in this current fiscal year, we do not have a budget allocation, which is their most pressing need is financial. And with the decision that you alluded to earlier through the budget process, unless it's the will of this council to adjust in year, we do not have an allocation within that could meet the needs of a Better 10 City. I know conversations have happened around, you know, if that ever came to be, what might that look like, so on and so forth. But again, as of right now, there are no plans for us within the 2023 budget year to provide any additional funding to a Better 10 City.
So thanks for that response, Mr. Sweeney. I guess maybe we'll have an offline and look to bring that conversation back for some direction, because I think the understanding when we debated it at budget time was that staff were going to take it away and bring a process back this year for that. Because I recall a number of members of council who weren't able to support it at budget said they wanted to see that process come back, and they were holding off on that to happen. And I don't think, and others can speak for themselves, but I don't think people were of the impression that wouldn't happen until 2024. So that could be problematic, and you know, I think we need to recognize that, you know, there's 40 to 50, I'm not sure what the exact number is right now, residents at that location that are being served and are being largely funded outside of any contributions from us, unlike the other shelters in the region.
Certainly, as a follow-up to that, so I would need to check, but my recollection was that the commitment from staff was to look at a process to consider in-year additional requests that was equitable and open to all organizations. And that process was a commitment that we would do that and set that up for this year. But if we've got wires crossed, then I'm certainly can go back to staff and review what we committed to confirm that. But my understanding was we were trying to avoid funding one-offs, and that's similar to some other granting conversations we've had here, is to make sure that there was a process for organizations in this space. But without a further increase to that funding envelope, that wouldn't be something we would be able to allocate without an in-year budget decision.
Okay, well, I'll follow up with you, and I'll follow up with colleagues on it. I guess, you know, my concern would be that we don't create a situation where all of a sudden a potential, you know, much needed project is no longer sustainable, and we have ourselves a problem with 50 individuals.
Councillor Craig.
Well, Mr. Chair, just to follow up on Councillor Vivanovich's comments, and I totally agree with his concerns about the sustainability. I understand staff's point of view about, quote, we don't have any more funds for this year. But, and then I'll come back to what we discussed earlier, which was to look at some of our surplus accounts and perhaps refer some of these concerns we're having after we look at the surplus accounts and what may be possible. One other question I have is that, and I can't say enough, Mr. Chair, you did a great job of just sort of laying out how staff and how volunteers have worked out there. What a great job. And I was a little taken back by just how remarkable your speech was. I thought it was very well done. And, well, it was very well done. You just can't just pull these things off a cuff and do such a remarkable job. But my question to staff is really with the 18 people that were moved out of Cambridge, out of 150 Main. But if I go over there and I look at, quote, the number of tents, I don't see that. What, can you explain what's happening? Are we allowing more people into 150 Main? Can you be perhaps a bit specific?
Certainly. So the first thing, as I'll say, is a report is coming to council with some specifics around how the movement has taken place over the last 2 months, and that's coming later this month. So I can't comment specifically on individuals who have gone, but what we have seen is most of those who were living in the 3 large encampments were offered a space at Herbs Road. A number of them accepted, and as you know, somewhat predicted, a number also declined for their own personal and various reasons. And so some of that movement has begun. I do understand that some folks have accepted a space at Herbs Road, but have yet to completely move out. As I think I've alluded to a number of times, the thing we want to be super cautious about in this process is asking 50 people to come to a place that they haven't seen. Certainly they have relationships with the provider, and to give them time and space. And some have been very enthusiastic and moved over right away, and others are taking a bit of time. The reality on the other side of that is, this is adding 50 spaces to the system, so to speak. And even though we've done that and continue to do that and have talked about this throughout, there will likely still be individuals who choose to live in encampments or choose other alternatives. And so right now we are still supporting individuals who are currently living at 150 Main and at 100 Vic, as we also support those transitioning over. But what we haven't seen is a full contraction of one encampment and everybody saying yes, and that encampment going away. We're not there, Councillor Craig.
Thank you.
So I have Councillor Deutschman and Councillor Hunick, and then I'm wondering, in light of Mr. Sweeney's comments that a report's coming back related to these numbers, if that can be the end of the questions related to this, and we move on with, we have another committee meeting, we have council, we have closed yet, we have a full afternoon. So Councillor Deutschman?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your speech. It's raised a whole nother topic of discussion here. But I just want to echo Councillor Urbanovic's comments, because having brought the motion asking for support for a better tent city at budget time, I was particularly keenly listening to what was happening and what the next steps were going to be. And my understanding at that time was that there was a general concern about not having a process in place to deal with these sorts of requests, and that was going to be addressed during the 2023 year, like something would be coming up during this particular time, and that we would be able to participate in that. Because at the time, Councillor Urbanovic had moved a motion that we had initially all supported about putting $1.8 million into a fund to use for a number of these services, and then that didn't happen. So clearly there was an interest amongst council to support these organizations, but there was also an interest in making sure that it was done under some fair and equitable process to be developed. And so I'm hoping that that work is going to be happening during 2023 and that we're going to hear back sooner than later. I'll follow up with some of my fellow members here as well to have a discussion about that and see where this can go, because I too share a concern. I don't know the financial situation for Better Tent City. They may be fine, they may not be fine, but I know certainly what we've expended to build our facility in Herbsville, and and they're doing it on their own, and we need Better Tent City. We cannot see that fail, so it's important for us to ensure that it's financially viable. And we know how important it is not only to build it, but to operate it. And that's really where the big issue comes in, is having the funds to operate on a sustainable basis. Because if we don't have a Better Tent City, we have a lot of other issues and that'll be problematic for us in the region in terms of our ability to move in the directions we'd like to do, given recent court decisions and everything else. We need that facility, and I look forward to hearing from Mr. Sweeney on future plans as we go on to develop more in this community. But yeah, hopefully we have something coming back on grants sooner than later, and not part of the waiting for the 2024 budget process. Thank you.
Mr. Lochner, you want to respond?
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I'm wondering if we can get direction from council today. You hear and totally understand a couple councillors maybe talking to some colleagues offline to get clarity. I think it would be better, since we have everybody in the room today, if we can get some direction. Peter, my understanding is the team is going to be bringing back a process to council, and I think that will lead to an inevitable recommendation around we would need more funding if we were going to expand this. So maybe you can just clarify, when are we bringing that back? And if that suits council, I'd prefer, Chair, to get that direction today than take up the busy time of all of council and staff with offline conversations.
Yeah, certainly. So just to be clear, it's also my understanding that the direction was to bring that process back this year. I honestly, I have to go check with staff of where we are. I know the work has begun. So happy to go and circle back on that. And also to suggest that it's the process that we would be bringing back to receive and consider in your requests. When we would want to start that, what resources would be required is still to be determined as far as I understand. But yeah, it's our intention to bring it back. I don't want to commit to a date without my staff here because I'm not sure how far along that is right now. So if that works, I could bring that information to our council meeting in 2 weeks. Is that fair?
Okay. Councillor Hunick.
Chair Erb, I have a comment, but if you or any regional staff have any clarity to offer there afterward, I would greatly appreciate it. I can't help but reflect on how in every committee meeting I've been a part of, scrutiny of these mysterious reserves has come up, and I'm having difficulty believing that staff are in any way trying to disadvantage the vulnerable members of our community, us or themselves, by quote-unquote saving more money in reserves than is absolutely necessary. And so I just wonder, is there a way that we can discuss this more constructively, or do we have to continue to default to, well, the magic is in the reserves? Because, from my perspective, I don't find that super constructive.
Want to respond to that, Mr. Dyer?
Through the chair, I should reassure council and the residents of Waterloo Region that there is no magic or mystery to our reserves. We have a policy. We have a policy in place that was most recently updated by the previous council. The reserves and reserve funds are reported as part of our annual audited financial statements, which have now been through audit committee and which will be coming to council later this month. Through the budget process, we provide updates and information on predominantly the tax stabilization reserve and the use of that reserve. But as an integral part of our capital and operating budget, we use reserves and reserve funds for a number of different purposes, predominantly relating to the funding of capital works, and specifically capital works of a asset renewal or state of good repair nature. All of those reserves individually are listed in the policy, and I can make that available to council. You'll see the updates on the financial statements, as I've already indicated. And notwithstanding the direction from this morning, Mr. Chair, if the If reserves are causing this much concern for council, we should come back with a full review of the policy. There's nothing to hide, there's no secrets, and there's no mystery. I can explain in excruciating detail how we use reserves and reserve funds here at the region, and their purpose, and what the Act allows and doesn't allow, and how we've put in place a policy to help ensure the long-term financial sustainability of the region. And if that will put a number of these issues or concerns or worries to bed, then we'll do that, and we'll do it soon.
Through you, Chair, can I just respond to that comment? Thank you, Mr. Dyer, so much for confirming the positive intention of the reserves. And I, for one, am glad to live in a community that has them. And so I'll just put that on the table for the rest of council to consider, contemplate, keep in mind. Thanks.
Okay, I have Chair Redmond and then Councillor Rabanovic for a second one. I was trying to bring this to a close. And pardon? I'm sorry.
Mr. Lochner asked a question, so I was looking to respond to.
Chair Redmond, your hand was up first.
So I too was just going to provide, and I do apologize, Chair Erb. My understanding was that it was a process that was coming back. Understand there is a whole lot of interest in what we're doing. Many of us were at a homelessness symposium put on by the Association of Municipalities of Ontario last week. And we are doing things differently, and that comes both with opportunity and with challenges. So I too thought that what we were looking for in this budget year was a process as opposed to providing specific funding for any other partner within the community.
My charity will extend to one more speaker, Mr. Rabanovic. Go ahead.
Thanks, Councillor Erb. Mr. Lochner did ask a question, so I was endeavoring to respond to it. So for the clarity that he's looking for, I just want to remind this council that when a Better Tent City came to us, they had some financial challenges. That's why they were coming to us. This group, because there were a number of other requests, this council was looking for a process. And so if that process is going to come back by the summertime, I think that's reasonable. If that process isn't going to come back until, November or December, that's problematic. Because the reality is if those financial problems existed at the beginning of the year, I can assure you from recent conversations, they haven't gotten any better. And so either we are fully paying the shot on this, and we know that this has been not a cheap endeavor. It was the right thing to do. I'm not questioning that. I fully supported it all along. We have a community partner that is continuing to take a significant portion of that responsibility and space with community donors. I think it's in our best interest to see that happen, and if they need a little bit of help, to have a process that will allow them and others to do that. In the absence of that, we might find ourselves with another, I don't know, what are we at, $2.5–3 million roughly annually? Well, the construction plus the operating. So, I think we need to keep that in mind.
Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you. I just can confirm that that process, a draft report, is actually heading my way shortly, so I can, the will of the council, provide a quick verbal update at our council meeting next in 2 weeks. But it looks like we'll be able to bring something to this council fully and formally in June.
You're out of order. I need to remind you first that the next meeting is on June the 6th, so you don't forget. You can motion now? Yes, thank you. Second, if I use your e-scribe to vote. I'm in favor. My thing is it's carried. Meeting's adjourned. Pardon? Oh, I thought it came. Carried. Meeting adjourned. Oh, God.